Well, the timeout generation has started to raise children, and of course, timeouts are just too extreme now. We're hearing more and more reports out there, and if you start Googling timeout, you'll see about how much psychological harm putting kids in timeout is going to be. Friends, we have this softening up of our society to the point where we are seeing serious repercussions throughout our system. And we're going to be talking about those a little bit today. We're going to be talking about some of the statistics of what's going on with the younger people these days. We're going to be talking about how it's impacting work, how it's impacting just everything in our whole society. If you are anything like me, I know I'm a little bit young for that, but my parents were taught by our church, and they were actually given a paddle to paddle us with. And they were given good instruction on how to do it. And I would say that most of the whoopings that I got, I deserved. And I'm not psychologically scarred from them, so to speak. But now, I will say this, that my parents did a great job. And I think that their directions from the church were very good, which is you should never punish your child in anger. You make the promise, and then you cool off. You cool off, and then you have the discipline. You make sure that they're very clear on exactly what they did to deserve the punishment, and then make sure that they understand that you are still in a relationship with them, and that this is not a break of relationship. That the relationship hasn't changed. You've been punished. Now you're good. Don't do it again, or else you'll get whooped again. And there's this whole idea now that you can't do that. You can't do that because that's going to harm them psychologically. And then you can't do timeout now because timeouts will harm kids psychologically because separating them from and isolating them causes mental strain or mental stress. And friends, creating mental stress and strain is kind of the point. That's the whole point of timeout. And giving a whooping to someone who has it coming, also, that's kind of the point. The point is that it hurts and it's uncomfortable, so then you stop doing what you're doing or what you did. You think twice next time. When we start separating behavior from consequences, like we are today, you see more and more of these increasing situations where students shouting at their teachers. I think my parents actually sent a note into the school saying basically, you have permission to corporally punish our son if he does something out of line. Now, I spent a lot of time in the principal's office in middle school and elementary school before Jesus got a hold of me. That radically transformed my life at between middle school years and high school years. That summer, that's when Jesus got a hold of me. Before that, I was constantly in trouble, and I had to constantly have my behavior modified because I couldn't help it. I was a troublemaker. I know. That shocks you. You're like, Steve, how could you be a troublemaker? But I think a lot of us have at least gone down those roads or been there. Now, maybe you're just a goody-goody two-shoes and you've always, your parents just looked at you the wrong way. They kind of frowned a little bit and you just were, it just cut you so deep. For me, I needed a good whooping. I lost privileges. We used to have our Nintendo system and back in the day, and those things were taken away from us. So how should you raise your kids? Now, I don't have any kids, so right there, a lot of you are going to go, well, then I don't want to hear your opinion. But I was a kid, and I was raised, and parents probably could have done better, I guess. I don't know. But I think they did a fairly good job on me and my brother. I needed a lot more behavior modification than my brother did. Of course, there were a couple times I got whooped for what my brother did. So, when you're the guilty party so often, you tend to get blamed when things aren't necessarily your fault. But that happened very infrequently. But how's this going to impact society? 33% of teenage girls, as high school girls, 33% of high school girls, now I don't know if that counts all the people that think they're girls and whatever, anyway, have seriously contemplated quitting in the last year. 33%. Friends, maybe we need a little more behavior modification. Maybe we need to do a little bit better job parenting. Now, I know a bunch of this has been heaped upon them by what's happening at schools and what they're being taught about how the world is coming to an end because they're exhaling, and they really should make room for more plants and animals in the world because humans are bad. But a lot of it's parenting. I mean, the first big thing to do with parenting is stay together. For parents to stay together. That is extremely traumatic for children. Anyone who says, oh, they'll be fine, has not taken one quick glance at the statistics out there. The emotional trauma and the uncertainty that goes into a young person's life, it makes them vastly more likely to get divorced when they get older. Makes them much more likely to get into illegal substances, get into relationships, inappropriate relationships that are going to that they really shouldn't be in, whether it's abusive or just ones that they're not ready for. Helps them to lower their standards in a bad way. Just all these impacts just are, and we have this massive wave of young parents who have been psychologically abused by not being whooped. Yes, I said that. Psychologically abused for not being whooped. If you don't whoop your kids when they deserve it, you encourage that behavior to happen. Now, if you have an alternative way of modifying that behavior, and each kid's different, I get that. Some kids, if you give them time out, it's like, it's the end of the world. If you take away their toy, or if you take away something, you don't necessarily need to do that. And there's concerns about, will you get your children taken away from you if you practice basic discipline? And I get that too. If you're like, this is what I'd do if I wouldn't have my children taken away from me by Child Protection Services or something like that. And you need a lot of wisdom. But the societal impacts of this are real. The lack of respect, the lack of self-respect out there is evident. And this inability to take criticism, this inability to hear things that you disagree with, this idea that it's everyone else's job to protect you and your feelings and your allergies and it's everyone else's job to protect you. That is a scary, scary world that we're in, where all of our rights need to be taken away in order for other people to feel safe. And these people are voting. A lot of these timeout generation folks are voting now. If they can figure out how to vote, and if they ever decide that it's worth voting. They're voting, and they're going to vote for a safe government. A government that makes them feel safe. A government that doesn't say hard truths, that doesn't actually speak the truth, but rather tells them comforting lies and strips everyone else of their rights in order for them to be protected. Friends, the U.S. Constitution and our form of government was that we protect ourselves. We protect our country. We protect our government. And by doing so, we are the government, as opposed to the government out there. They protect us. They have control over us. They decide what we're allowed to eat, what we're not allowed to eat. They decide what you're allowed to do for a living and what you're not allowed to do for a living. How many different jobs nowadays require a licensure? You need to get a license from the government in order to do anything these days, it seems like. You have to pay them fees, fines. You have to do it their way. And if you don't do it their way, you lose the ability to do that and you'll end up in jail. The timeout generation has come, and I don't even want to think about the generation to come that were too soft emotionally to handle timeout. What will they be like? Whew. What's worse than purple hair? I don't know, but we're probably going to find out. We're probably going to find out, friends. And you know, if you ever watch Hunger Games and you see all the weirdos in the Capitol, like that's how our country's becoming. It's a bunch. I mean, it's like that's exactly like what we're becoming. All these weirdos. And what can we do about it? We can raise kids in our communities. I'm part of my church that helps families raise their kids, and we're wrestling through a lot of these questions together as a church family. How do we encourage the families? How do we equip the families to raise their children well without telling them to do stuff that may have their children confiscated from them, if you know what I mean? So we need to think through these questions long and hard, because our society depends on the children that we're raising, because not only are they going to be society, but they are part of society now. We need a society full of respect, self-respect, as well as respect for others, and a commitment to truth and principles above comfort and ease. All right, folks, if you found this video to be useful or helpful, you might want to check out this other video right here from me. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you later. Steve Poplar out.